Hello learners, today we are going to discuss about effects of stress. In last class we had discussed about the stress, its different components, and now we are going to discuss about how stress affect our body. So in this today's class we are going to discuss about the uh, effect of stress on the health, on performance and productivity, and on relationship. So, stress can affect individuals in different ways. In some individuals, it may affect physical health or psychological well being. It has severe impact on health, performance, productivity, and relationship. Effects of stress are interrelated. It means stress can affect almost all parts of our life, and one thing is related to another thing. For example, if our health is not good, so it may cause stress. If our productivity is not optimal, it may cause stress because we may get negative feedback from our bosses. If our relationship is not good, it may cause stress. At the same time, if we are under stress, we may neglect our relationship, our productivity will be affected, our performance will be affected, and definitely it affects our physical and mental health. Let us see how it affects. So, as we have discussed, like all these things are interrelated with stress. Let us see the effect of stress on health. We all know that due to high stress, our immune system goes down, and it weakens, and due to poor immune system, lots of opportunistic infections affect us. Okay, lots of viral diseases, bacterial, fungal diseases affect us. Why? Because our body is not able to fight the uh, bacteria or virus because due to poor immune system. So once the immune system is strong, we can fight because see we know all that there are TB bacteria in the air. Okay, but we do not get TB. Why? Because our immune system is strong. As soon as the bacteria goes inside, our immune system kills it. So it won't allow them to multiply. But when our immune system is weak, all bacteria, all viruses, they may affect us. Okay? And it also, due to stress, also our we look little older. It accelerates basically aging. So it also affects the lifestyle of the individual, including diet and nutrition. When we are under stress, we ignore our diet, we ignore nutritious food, we do not feel like eating, we escape physical exercises, we generally not doing any physical activity, lying down most of the time or sitting or not doing it, not engaged ourselves in any productive activity, and due to high stress, we start consuming alcohol or other drugs like tobacco, cannabis, etc. Why we start consuming drugs? Because due to stress, we get bored, we don't have anything to do, and alcohol and drugs give some relief. It gives some pleasurable effect. So due to that also, we try to avoid stress using alcohol and drugs. And due to lifestyle, affected lifestyle, there is a possibility of developing hypertension because it is a sympathetic nervous system gets activated, and it has been also seen that those who are using alcohol or drugs, they they also develop lots of diseases including hypertension, diabetes mellitus, obesity, or underweight. So, due to this, the blood pressure increases and remain increased for longer period of time. So, it is considered as high blood pressure, and the person needs medication. The same way, due to poor lifestyle, sedentary lifestyle, when there is less activity, the and person is taking high calories diet or not doing any work, are not doing any physical activities, so there is a high chance of developing diabetes mellitus. That is called sugar in layman terms. And the obesity is also very common, and obesity is also one of the reason for many types of physical illness, including cancer. High stress and affected lifestyle also affect our digestive system. It may cause ulcers in duodenum and irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel diseases. So, like the person may used to go to different places, but earlier, but the patient starts avoiding it. Why? Because the person feels bowel sickness. He has to go again and again for uh, emptying his bowel. So these are the some of the issues related to digestive systems. Stress also affect the respiratory system. It may cause asthma or it may exacerbate asthma. Those who are having some asthmatic problem, stress may worsen it. It also affect our nervous system, brain, so it may cause migraine or tension headache. So the person may require some medication. And we all know that stress may affect almost all systems in our life or our body, including endocrine system. Hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism is very common. So it shows that due to stress, our whole body get affected badly. And not only physical damage it cause psychological damages also. Some of the very common psychological symptoms developed due to stress is anxiety. Anxiety is basically a worry about the future, that something bad may happen, but what happened the person is not very clear. Depression, the person may feel low, the person mood remains low, the person may feel fatigued, the person may not enjoy any activities. Another symptoms is like somatization. In somatization, the person is complaining of multiple somatic complaints, multiple pain, back pain. It's like the pain starts from the shoulders and it goes up to stomach and legs like that. So this somatization is basically associated with it is seen that if there is a high stress in the family, financial problems are there. So housewives generally they develop somatization disorder. Substance use is also very common as we have discussed. Due to stress, the person wants some relaxation, some rest, so the person start taking substance, and after taking initial few uh, breaks of the alcohol or few puffs of the cigarette, the person becomes addicted to. Then it's not under his or her control to limit the substance use. Insomnia is also one of the major symptoms associated with stress. As we have discussed in our earlier several classes about the insomnia, it is three types of insomnia: initial insomnia, intermittent insomnia, and terminal insomnia. Initial insomnia is like getting difficulty in falling asleep, whereas in intermittent insomnia, the person wakes up during the night but get again sleep. Whereas in terminal insomnia, the person gets up very early in the morning, for example, 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, and after that, the person finds it very difficult to get sleep again. So this basically affects the day-to-day activity, and it may cause some other symptoms also due to sleep disturbances. Due to stress, also decline in cognitive functions are seen. Cognitive functions basically assessed on neuropsychological tests, like there are tests for attention and concentration and memory. There are neuropsychological batteries which can assess all these cognitive functions tests. Then it affects the decision making process, problem solving process. So due to stress, the person's cognitive functions may not function well. So, so now let us see the effect of performance, effect of stress on performance and productivity. We all know that the person who is under stress, it decreases the productivity of the person. The quality of the work gets down. The person who was productive earlier is not productive now. His work speed is slow. There will be lots of mistakes in his work. Suppose the person is doing paperwork, so lots of mistakes will there. The person may forget about doing the job of today. So the pending lots of pending work will be there. Due to this tendency, the person may get more stress. So there is no doubt whatever type of job the person is doing, if the stress is high, it definitely affect the productivity. Absenteeism is also a very common side effect of high stress. So if the person is under stress, the person may not get well sleep, and in the morning the person will not go to job or maybe late. So either the person is late or the person remains absent from the job due to high stress. And due to high stress, there is a loss of main days. For example, if the person was doing uh, his complete job earlier, now he is doing 50% job. So 50% main days were lost. So let us understand the stress and the performance on the basis of this inverted U-shaped curve given by Yerkes Dodson. It basically shows the relationship between stress, increase of the stress, and then decrease in the performance of the task. So when stress is low, the performance will also be low because we need some amount of stress which is called u stress. Like in our last few classes we have discussed about the u stress and d stress. U stress is good, it basically gives us lots of energy, motivation to do the things, whereas d stress, it basically sucks our energy. It's very difficult for us to do some work. So when the stress is low, performance will also be low. But when the stress increases and it reaches up to the optimal level, that is called U stress, is the peak of the this inverted U. So that is the stress is optimal and the performance is also high, maximum you can say. But if the stress keep on increasing, then the performance gets down. So the performance gets affected. It means we need some amount of stress to do our job, but if the stress becomes distress more, then it will be difficult to continue the job with the same quality or same quantity. So in chronic stress, exhaustion, decreased organizational commitment, and higher turnover amongst the employees say. So what happens at workplace if stress is more? So that all the staffs may feel exhausted or the commitment, like when we are working in some organization, we are committed to the betterment of the organization. So that commitment also decreases when we are under stress, and lots of staffs they leave the job, then another people join. Okay, that is it. And due to high stress, job satisfaction decreases. So and individuals may take more time to complete a task and poor time management. This will see in our next few slides. So it also stress also affects the teamwork. Like if we are working in a team, our productivity will be more, and the cohesion between the staff will be more. So it affects teamwork and it affects our ability to function in a group. Why? Because due to high stress, uh, we may get irritated. If someone says something, we may take it otherwise. Okay, so it affects our teamwork and group functioning. So ultimately, it leads to poor productivity. Then it affects our communication. As I told you, like when someone says something or when boss says something, so the person who is under stress may get easily irritated. So sometimes his colleagues or other persons boss, they also think, what happens to this person, earlier he was not like that, now why he is behaving like this. So but due to stress our communication get affected. Irrational personal or group decision. So those who are under stress, due to high stress, their problem solving abilities is not very good, affected. So and they are due to high stress, they are not able to take rational decisions. So sometimes they take certain irrational decision about themselves or about the organization, about the work. So some of the person due to stress they resign from the job. It also hampered interactions and relationship at workplace. We all know that the person who is under stress, it's very difficult to interact with with the person because the person is always preoccupied with his thoughts or stress or anxiety or depression. There is a new concept called techno stress. Okay, it is a new type of stress which is experienced due to the lack of an ability to cope with changes or advancement in technology seen in case of generally middle or older adults. Now every day the technology is growing like anything. So it's sometimes it's very difficult to cope up with those changes. For example, earlier there were physical meetings, now there is a Zoom meeting or online meetings. So you have to share your screen, you have to prepare something. So it's like sometimes it's very difficult for the older persons or middle-aged person to cope up with such changes. So you might have seen during this Corona time, many of the elder adults they were having difficulty in sharing the screen or doing lots of like with the difficulty they were doing, and now many of them have coped up with these changes. But still, this is a problem, and we do not know in coming future what are the other changes this technology is bringing. So this may increase the stress and often found to be associated with lower level of productivity. So there is always a will to learn and we all try to learn. But due to stress, our learning process get hampered, and due to certain changes in the technology also, we get highly stressed. There is another concept called burnout. So, what is burnout? When you try to do something but you are not getting the appropriate results or the expected results, then there will be burnout. So, what happens in burnout? Totally exhaustion, irritation, ineffectiveness, discounting of self and others, and problems related to health. So generally burnout seen in clinical setup more. For example, when doctors are treating the patients and patient is not improving, and or it is if they are engaged in chronic treating chronic disorders, so after some times the treating team may feel burnout. So we have to work on the burnout also. In corporate sector also, this concept is there because the boss is there to improve the functioning, but staffs are not able to improve, so there will be burnout. The person will become hopeless after some time. So it is called burnout stress syndrome, BOSS. This can result in a decrease of energy level, decreased illness resistance, experiencing heightened dissatisfaction and pessimism, besides lack of efficiency in carrying out one's work. So due to stress there is lots of problem. If person may develop burnout, and due to burnout there will be a burnout stress syndrome, and the person landed in a very bad condition. Let us see the effect of stress on relationships. How stress affect our relationship. So we all know that human are dependent. We dependent. We are dependent on each other, and we cannot function in isolation. Like if you see in a class, many students they discuss with each other. If some concept is not clear, they ask their friend. So this is the tendency. Like in family, we work in a close coordination with each other. In organization, whatever how big the organization, it won't matter, but the all the staffs they work in a close coordination with each other, so they rely on each other. So what happens if the stress is high? What happens to this dependence, this working in a cohesion, working in a group, working in close coordination, taking order and giving order? So what happens to those things? Let us see. So what happens due to high stress? All these things get affected. So the person starts functioning in isolation. The person may not rely on other. The person may not share his work or pending work with others. The person may not discuss that he is not able to do his daily works. So all these things leads to a affected relationship. So the relationship may get affected. So stress can also have an impact on the individual's relationship due to anger, social withdrawal, distraction, and less affection towards other. So see, if we are not very much concerned about others, showing affection to others, so others will also get less interested in us. If we are distracted, if we are not focused on others, so others will also uh, may not be very much engaged in us. If we are socially withdrawn, then others may approach us, but if we are socially withdrawn, they give up after some time. He is not interested. And due to anger and irritation, people do not like to discuss. So you also know that those who get angry, those who get irritated, you generally avoid the person, or you generally do not talk about the any issue with the person. Due due to substance use, the relationship get very much affected. You all know that all domestic violence, crime, etc. are related to substance use. So due to substance use, the relationship, due to stress the person takes substance, and due to substance use the relationship get affected, and lots of interpersonal conflicts may arise due to high stress. So if everything is fine, then the even the mistakes of the children, mistakes of the partner will be overlooked. But if the person is under stress, even the minute things, minute disorder, minute dysfunction will be causing lots of problem for the person and lots of intense reaction from that person. So it may leads to increased sensitivity to others' communication. The person has, if the like the friend has told something in a simple way, but the person who is under stress may interpret it differently. The person may interpret it as a sarcasm. So usage of abusive, harsh, and unpleasant language will also be there, and this may affect relationship very badly. No one will listen your abusive or harsh or unpleasant language again and again. So stress can be termed as contagious, where when a partner is undergoing stress, the other partner will also experience stress. So you can remember that. If suppose the father is under stress, so this stress may be transmitted to mother also. And if father and mother or any one of them are under stress, so it may affect their children also. So it means if one person is under stress, the other persons who are related to that person may also get stress. Same thing happens in organization also, in offices also. If one person is under stress, he may disturb other persons not knowingly, but his behavior will be very disturbing for the others. So to summarize the effect of stress, we have seen it affects our health badly, it affects our job performance, and it affects our relationship directly or indirectly. Okay, now let us see the another unit, that is unit 5. Here we are going to discuss about how to cope with stress. Okay, because stress is not going to go away very easily, and every day we have to face one or another type of stress. So stress is going to be there, so we should know how to cope with the stress. So here in this unit we are going to discuss about the definition, will define stress and coping also, and nature of coping, and we'll see the goals of coping. We'll discuss about the coping style in details, like provocative coping, avoidant coping, emotion focused coping, and problem focused coping. So some of the copings are very healthy, some of the copings are not so healthy. So people try to deal with stress with some predefined ways. These are called coping strategies. Sometimes these strategies are maladaptive in nature. These strategies could be effective or ineffective. For example, if a person is not getting sleep or his sleep is disturbed for 2 3 days, and he discuss this thing in his office about from his with his friends, that he is not getting sleep, proper sleep. So his friends may advise, why don't you take one peg of wine? It is good for heart also, and it is good for sleep also. And the person finds it very exciting. Yes, he is getting very good sleep. So it seems this taking alcohol in the night for getting sleep is a coping, a good coping. But in the long term, taking alcohol in the night may lead to addiction, and it may cause lots of problems. Even though the person may not be get addicted, it affects his physical health, liver, and certain other things. So let us see the definition of the coping, how it is defined. So basically, coping is the way in which an individual tries to deal with the stress experienced by him. So basically, it is a way of dealing the stress. Efforts, both cognitive and behavioral, that are directed towards overcoming, decreasing, or enduring the internal and external demands, is basically coping. So it could be instrumental coping. It is denoted by results of cognitive appraisal or conflicts related to emotion. Whereas palliative coping is denoted by regulation of emotions as a result of cognitive repressal of the stressful event or situation. So why we need coping? Okay, why it is required for us? So the coping may aim at dealing with the problem that is the cause of any distress in the individual, or to deal with the negative emotions experienced by him. Therefore, coping is mainly attributed to the reduction or alleviation of the distress experienced by the individual. So that's why, like, we have to escape from the pain, we have to escape from the distress, we have to reduce the pain, we have to reduce the problem. So that's why we need coping. So let us see the adaptive and maladaptive coping. So an adaptive coping reduces stress and has long-term positive effect. So if your coping gives you long-term positive effects, it means the coping is adaptive, the coping is healthy coping. But if it won't give you any long-term positive effect, short-term positive effect may be there, but if it won't give you long-term positive effect, and in long term it may give you negative effect, so such type of copings are called unhealthy or maladaptive coping. So maladaptive coping may provide respite from stress for a short period of time, but in long term it will affect you badly. For example, I have given you the example of alcohol. If you take wine for getting sleep, so initial effect will be good, but long term will be very bad. So variations in ways of coping are based on personality, tolerance level for stimulation, psychological hardiness, style of attribution, and learned helplessness. We'll see all these things in little bit detail in our further slides. So, what is psychological hardiness? There are three main components of psychological hardiness: commitment, control, and accepting the challenge. So, psychological hardiness is basically an individual's ability to deal with stressful situation with resilience. So you know that resilience is bouncing back. Suppose something is destroyed, everything is destroyed, nothing has left, but still you have the mm, inner feeling that yes, you have to live, you have to survive, you have to overcome all those hurdles, burdens, barriers. So this is basically resilience. So hardiness can be related with the three main aspects: commitment, as I told you, control, and challenge. This can determine the response to a stress or coping strategy employed by the individual. So optimistic individuals are likely to cope better with stressful situations. So if the person is committed, if the person thinks he can control the things, control himself, and if the person is ready to take challenges, so the person is able to manage in a able to manage stress in a better way than the person who are not optimistic or not having these components. Another factor is learned helplessness. We all know that this concept was introduced by Seligman. The term is used to describe the interference with adaptive responding produced by inescapable shock, and also as a process which we believe underlies the behavior. So basically, what is learned helplessness? It's like the person, we can see it in a with the example of a corporate sector. Like the person does lots of work, good work, but boss never gives him any feedback or reinforcement, never praises. So, and when the person is not doing anything, then also he is not getting any negative feedback. So, after some time, the person may become indifferent and may not be doing anything. So, this is called learned helplessness. Let us see the gender differences in coping. So, men and women generally they differ in manage, understanding or feeling the stress. So women are more likely to comply coping st- women are more likely to employ coping strategies like positive self-talk, seeking support from others, continuously worrying about the stressful events. Whereas men generally do not do like this. They do not talk a lot about their stress. So talking is also a way of coping. Women are also more prone to develop learned helplessness, and women use coping strategies that change in their emotional reaction to a situation that is stressful. It means the way men and women differ to understand the stress, the same way men and women differ in using coping. So women use different copings, men use different coping. Women use more or less emotion focused coping, whereas men use. So women perceive more psychological distress and display depression and anxiety due to stress. This can also be attributed to coping strategies that are emotion focused. Men, on the other hand, could engage in maladaptive coping strategies like consumption of alcohol or drugs or smoking. However, men are more likely to focus on the problem. So, the focus of the men and women is different. Men generally focus on the problem, but women generally they focus on the emotion. But there is a greater chance that men may use maladaptive coping, like using substances. Now let us see the goals of coping. The main goal of coping is dealing with the stressor so that its impact should be minimal. Individual differences exist in the coping style adopted by the persons. Different coping strategies may be effective in different situations, and during the coping process, either internal resources or external resources are utilized. So, whenever there is a stress, we have to reduce it by using any coping. Okay, so that's why coping is very important. But every person may have different types of coping styles, and different coping strategies may be effective in different situations. Like one coping strategy may not be effective in another or in all the situation. And during the coping process, either internal resources or external resources are utilized. Suppose you are in a crisis of money, you need money. So what you will do? You can't use your internal resources. You have to ask from your friends, relatives. You have to go to bank, ask for loan. That's it. So to enhance the possibility of recovery by decreasing the negative environmental conditions, the coping is used. To be able to adjust to the negative situation, we need to use coping. To maintain a positive self-image and maintain emotional balance, coping must be used. To ensure positive interpersonal relationship, coping is used. So coping is effective when it leads to recovery and when the individual is able to adapt to the stressful situation by means of maintaining a positive image about oneself, emotional balance, and has effective interpersonal relationships. Physiological, biochemical changes, and psychological functioning can be assessed in order to ascertain whether the coping has been adaptive or not. So, if your coping affects your physiological, biochemical, and psychological functioning negatively, it means coping is not adaptive, it is maladaptive or unhealthy. If there is a reduction in levels of stress, then the coping strategy is adaptive in nature. Also, the time taken by an individual to reach the same state of functioning before they experience a negative event or display of an improved state of functioning than before the negative event was experienced. Let us see the coping styles. We all have different coping styles. So these are the four main coping styles: proactive coping, avoidant coping, emotion focused coping, and problem focused coping. So, proactive coping and avoidant coping are based on the method of coping, how we cope. Okay, whereas emotion focused coping and problem focused coping are based on the focus of coping, where the person is focusing on. So the person will focus on his or her emotion, or the person will focus on the problem. Whereas proactive is basically how the person is seeing the stress and try to cope it the same way, avoidant how the person tries to cope the stress. Let us see all these four coping style in a little bit detail. The individual will directly confront the stressful situation or event. So this is example of proactive coping. Individual takes direct action by developing a better idea about the stress creating situation. So when there is a problem, stress, the person directly tries to deal with the stress. So there are five stages of proactive coping. Let us understand in a detail. Accumulation of resources, the first stage. Stage two is identifying and anticipating the potential stressor. Even the stressor is not there, but the person is prepare himself before the stress comes. Stage three, initial appraisal. Appraisal means giving personal meaning to the incident. Stage 4, preliminary efforts to cope. Stage 5, seeking feedback and using it. So these are the five stages. Let us see in a little bit different in detail. Proactive coping. So what happens in stage 1? Accumulation of the resource. Whatever resources the person is having, inner or outer, the person accumulate all the resources. For example, the child has appearing for the board exam, so the parents prepare for money, collect the money or some save the money for his admission in some good college, so hostel expenditure and other things can be made out with those money. So they prepare in advance. The individual makes attempt to accumulate resources to deal with the stressor. This could also be in terms of gathering information so as to understand the stressful situation in better manner. Stage 2, identifying or anticipating the potential stressor. A potential stressor is anticipated or identified by the individual. For example, if it is expected that teacher may ask for a certain report or homework, the student anticipates the stressor and starts working on the report beforehand. Proactive coping stage 3 is initial appraisal. Appraisal refers to the individual's continuous evaluation of how things are going in relation to his personal goals, value, and beliefs. So, initial appraisal of the stress creating situation is carried out, and this helps in adopting a better strategy to deal with the stressor. So, it means the person gives meaning and try to assess the situation. Then stage 4 is basic preliminary efforts to cope with the stressful situation. Based on the initial appraisal, preliminary efforts to cope with the stressful situation are carried out. If efforts do not show any positive results, then some other actions is taken in order to deal with the situations. Stage 5, seeking feedback and using the same. Feedback is sought and used so that modifications and changes can be carried out. It is based on stage 3 and 4. So basically, proactive coping is the best way. Like you sense the stress, you sense the crisis beforehand. You collect your all the resources, inner or outer, which is required to deal with the stress. So you can cope up with the stress. Then you can basically prepare yourself. You can appraise the situation, how the situation can be dealt with, and you try to cope up with the situation, and you get feedback also from your best wishes. So another the we have discussed about the proactive coping. Now avoidant coping style. This is not the very good type of coping, but in some situation it is helpful. Or initially when the person is not equipped with all sorts of healthy coping, so avoidant coping can be but generally we should avoid it. The individual will try to avoid the stress creating situation or may give less importance to the stressful situation. The behavior is directed towards avoiding certain thoughts or feeling that could arise due to stressful situation. Avoidance coping impacts self-confidence. So if you avoid, because suppose the task was given in the class or homework was given and you have not prepared, so in next class what you will do, you not try to make eye contact with your teacher, you try to sit back on the back bench. Okay, so it definitely affects your confidence. And suppose teacher asked you, you couldn't answer, you have not answered, and others answered, so it definitely affects your self confidence. You think that you are not very good. It involves cognitive and behavioral efforts, denying, minimizing, or avoiding, dealing directly with stressful demands, and is closely linked to distress and depression. So, those who use avoidant coping style in future, they develop high distress, depression, anxiety. Why? Because it affects their self-esteem, self-confidence, and it leads to, because the person has to avoid every time. And if initially, like initial avoidance, if it is reinforced, like the person escaped from the stress, so it is, the person will definitely use avoidant coping style. So in simple terms, certain behaviors that may stir up negative memories are avoided. So individuals who use avoidant coping may not continue pursuing their goal if they experience thoughts that create anxiety. So same thing happens if the student is not avoiding classes, avoiding homework, avoiding reading books. So it will be very difficult for the student to pursue his study or her study. So we should try to avoid using avoidance coping. So let us see the emotion focused coping. Mainly focuses on managing one's emotion. So there is a problem, but your focus is less on the problem, more on managing the emotion. If you are feeling bad, so you are managing yourself, so you should not feel bad. Its purpose is to manage emotions that are related with the stressful situation rather than modifying the situation. It involves management of the emotional reactions toward the event causing stress. Emotion focused coping strategies aim to reduce and manage the intensity of the negative and distressing emotions that a stressful situation has caused rather than solving the problematic situation itself. Coping is directed towards decreasing any unpleasantness that the person experiences as a result of facing the stressful situation. For example, the teacher has asked one question which he taught in the last class, and the student has not answered. So teacher scolded or her. So what happened? The student is feeling very bad. So the student's focus is on how to cope up with this bad mood. So this is called emotion focus. Whereas in problem focus, the student's focus will go, okay, next time onwards, I'll try to read, and after reading only I'll come to class. So I'll complete the chapter, then I'll come to class, I'll read everything, I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. So that is problem. But it doesn't mean emotion focused coping is useless. It has also some importance. This coping style also involves positive reappraisal, where positive aspects of the situation are focused on keeping in mind one's own benefits and growth. So emotion focused coping are often used when change in the stressful situation is not possible. For example, death in the family, or something bad happens or breakup, divorce in such condition. And emotion focused coping more to be used by women than men. So using emotion focused coping can help in decreasing the negative effects of the stressor. It helps the individual to accept the situation and will lead to decrease in experience of chronic stress. It also helps individuals to think with a clear mind and seek a solution to the problem. It may lead to contentment in life and bring about positivity. It enhances one's ability to focus on aspects that can be modified or changed. Some of the strategies of emotion focused coping include listening to music, maintaining a diary, meditation, chanting certain mantra, religious mantra, exercise, etc. What is the drawback of emotion focused coping? It may not be as effective as the source of the stress is not dealt with it, and as such, no long term solution is sought. So, this is one of the drawbacks. Like the person is totally engrossed in emotion, totally focused on the emotion, whereas the problem is ignored. So, that could be one of the drawbacks. But sometimes it is helpful. Now let us see the problem focused coping. This is also one of the best coping. Proactive coping and problem focused coping are the best coping. It involves identifying the source of the problem so as to either deal with it or modify it. It involves taking control of the stressful situation, seeking information about the stressor, the situation, and evaluation of positive and negative aspect in a situation. The proactive coping is closely related with the problem focused coping. In initial stages of this coping, identification of the problem so that the source of the stress is clear. This is important as this coping style can be effective only when there is a clarity with regard to the problem. So if the problem is clear, then only you can use problem focused coping. It works well where one knows what the source of stress is. It is also effective in dealing with stressors and useful in long term. Source of stress is based on emotions, then it is better to use emotion focused coping rather than problem focused coping. For instance, while dealing with loss of a loved one, divorce, and breakup. As I told you earlier, that in certain conditions, emotion focused coping is more helpful. And these conditions are like where there is a breakup, death, break or divorce, or some argument with the friend. So various strategies involved in problem solving coping include management of time, seeking support, seeking help from others, and planning. So if the person is not very um, comfortable in using these things, then the problem focused coping cannot be used. Though, so what are the drawbacks? The focus should be on the problem only. There might be certain issues which are ignored. For example, if a person has an interview but could not prepare for it due to paucity of time, he has no other choice but face the interview and do his best. In this case, the paucity of time could be termed as roadblock uh, that need to be focused on as time has already passed and nothing can be done about it. It may not be effective in every stressful situations. So other viewpoints of the coping is appraisal focused coping. uh, combative coping, preventive coping. Let us see. So what is appraisal focused coping? It's given by Carver and Connor Smith. The assumption of an individual with regard to his perceptions of the stressor are challenged by the means of cognitive reappraisal. Reappraisal means you are seeing a thing, you are seeing a stressor, you are seeing an event in a certain way. So you again try to see in all those things in a different manner. So reappraise the situation. In combative coping, in order to deal with the stressor, the individual makes an attempt to remove the stressor by overcoming it. Okay, so it is called combative. It involves monitoring of stress, resource accumulation, dealing with the stressor by attacking it directly, tolerance of stress, and decreasing arousal. So what happens when there is stress? We become highly aroused. So this is also one way that you decrease your arousal. You try to tolerate the stress or attack it directly. So this is called combative coping. Whereas in preventive coping, it includes adjustment uh, so that the stressor can be avoided. So you do lots of adjustment here and there, so the stressor can be avoided. Uh, Cognitive restructuring takes place so that the stressor is not threatening anymore. So you modify your thought process, you restructure your thought, so you may not perceive the event as a stressor. One's own potential for resistance is also strengthened so that the stressor can be prevented from occurring. So what happens in case of homemaker? So like lots of stressor is there, lots of household chores and other things she has to do. So what she and see it is causing a stress for her. So what she is not getting any rest. So what she will do? She will think that no, this is my duty. I should do more for my family. So this is cognitive restructuring. So demand levels are adjusted. Behavior patterns that lead to stress are modified, and coping resources, physiological, psychological, financial, etc., are developed. So let us summarize this chapter also. So in this chapter we had discussion about the goals of coping. It is very much required because when there is a stress, it affects our health, our psychological health, physical health, our productivity, our relationship with others. It affects lots of things. So we have to cope. We have to develop certain healthy coping mechanism. We had discussed about the positive and negative coping. So basically, if coping is adaptive, if coping is effective, if coping is healthy, then the effect will be positive. But when the coping is unhealthy, maladaptive, it may not be effective, and there will not be relief from the stressor in long term. In short term, there might be some relief, but in long term, there won't be any relief. Then we have discussed about the coping styles. So in coping styles, we have discussed about proactive coping. So we anticipate the stressor and try to manage it beforehand. So we prepare each and everything beforehand before the stress will come. Like student preparing for exams. Then avoidant coping, it is not very good, not very healthy, Emotion focused is basically focusing on the emotion rather than solving the problem, but there are certain situations where emotion focused coping is very important. The problem focused coping is the best coping mechanism where the person tries to solve the problem. Thank you.